Our guest today was appointed city treasurer by Mayor Richard M. Daley in December 2006. She won election in February 2007. Prior to her public service, our guest today served as vice president at Northern Trust Global Investments. She serves on 5 public pension boards. Our guest today graduated from Smith College and earned her MBA from the University of Chicago. She is the proud mother of her 9-year-old son, Justin. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to the City Club of Chicago, the city treasurer, Stephanie Neely. Stephanie?
Aren't you guys nice? See, I pay them to stand up. They're all worried about their paychecks over there. Good afternoon, everybody, and thank you so much for coming out. This is such a pleasure. You know, I didn't want to do this, but Jay twisted my arm and said, you have to, so I pushed it off. So as Harold Washington said, you wanted Stephanie, you got Stephanie. I just wanted to say that because most of you know me pretty well, the requirement of being admitted into this room is you either had to be related to me, so all of my relatives, come on and stand up. Come on, all of you, there's more than that. Come on, stand up, yeah, where's Don Wilbon? Stand on up, all of my relatives, stand on up. Or you had to be a close friend. I assume those are the rest of you that are sitting down. Tim King, who's the president of Urban Prep, did not stand up. He's known me since I was 8 years old, and he's doing some great things. So as I said, you'd either be a good friend or a relative. But I didn't want to do a normal, little speech about what does the city treasurer do. I manage a portfolio of about $7 billion. I sit on 5 pension boards. No. You know me. Carol knows this well. I'm competitive. So I wanted to do something different, and I invited a good friend of mine, Art Norman, from NBC Channel 5 News, to ask me some questions. So we're going to have some fun. This is going to be very non-traditional. You guys can, write down your little questions. This is a DKNY dress for all of those who wanted to know. And we can have some fun. But before I actually turn it over to Art, if I can ask my wonderful staff who stood up before to stand up again, because they're the people behind me who make me look good and do a great job. So my staff, you guys are all around. Please stand up. They keep me out of trouble, too. So here we go.
Good afternoon. My name is Art Norman at NBC News, and I am also a member of the City Club of Chicago, signed up by Kathy Posner, who's not here today. She's under the weather, but send her a get well card when you get a chance. We're going to have a wonderful opportunity. We're going to relax. We're going to have some fun. We're going to actually get to some very pointed questions, and I'm going to put on my Phil Donahue hat in a little while. I'm going to walk around with my microphone, and you can ask questions to the treasurer. But first, we're going to just open it up. We're going to have a personal one-on-one dialogue and just get some of the basics out of the way. I just want to say you're wonderful, big-time supporter. I'm chairman of the United Negro College Fund Walk, Run, Bike, and Skate-a-thon every year, and she's a big supporter, and so are you, my brother. But this is your day. Thank you very much. First of all, what does the treasurer do? I'm giving you a softball question.
Okay, I just answered that one, so I can handle that one.
Okay.
I am one of 3 citywide elected officials. We have the mayor, I think you guys all know him, Richard Daley, and we have the city clerk, Miguel Devallier, and then there's me. And so I'm responsible for managing all the money. And so I jokingly say that the mayor doesn't have any money, Alderman Austin doesn't have any money, I have all the money. And my 9-year-old son said to President Emil Jones the other day, my mommy has all the money. So that is what I do. I have all the money. Nobody else has any money.
Well, I just want to say thank you very much. We also want to know about, right now, this past week, we've seen a lot happening in Washington. Specifically, our money, our collective money, the government's money. And there's talk of a bailout. Is Chicago's money safe?
Chicago's money is very safe, right, Mark? That's what you told me earlier today. Chicago's money is very safe. We are statutory limited in what we can invest in, and so we invest in very safe securities. We invest in agencies and treasuries, and those are very secure. We typically go out about 3 months. I'm proud to say that we do over 50% Montel, over 50% of our trades with women and minority-owned businesses. He says 46. That's still over 50%. And we beat our benchmark. And to date, we have probably earned about $120 million for the citizens of Chicago. So not only is the money safe,
Wow.
it's working for you.
What are some of the programs that are in place now that are not in jeopardy, going to be around for a long time? We're seeing the cloud over our financial dollar. What programs are safe? Housing's on the bubble.
Well, I find it interesting that there's a statistic out there that 95% of Americans don't know the difference between a stock and a bond, and that troubles me. And so financial literacy has been a priority of my office to make sure that we're working with not only our adults, we partner with Chicago City Colleges at all 7 colleges offering financial literacy classes free of charge, but we also work with Chicago Public Schools making sure we're teaching our kids. And I'd like to tell the story about my son's purple piggy bank. That was the brainstorm of Susan Beecham called the Savvy Pig. When I was actually a principal for a day, years ago, I was co-principal with Susan, and she gave me this piggy bank to give my then 4-year-old son. And it's divided into sections where you have to save money, you have to invest money, you have to spend money, and you have to give money to a charitable organization. And it's a program that I think we need to teach all 500,000 Chicago public school students so that they're not part of this problem of not knowing the difference between a stock and a bond. So those are some of the programs that I'm really excited about, of getting financial literacy to all of our children.
One thing in the nation's capital, when they balance the budget, it can be balanced in the red. Not so in Chicago. You have to have a balanced budget. What new revenue streams do you see that we can tap into that will save us from raising taxes?
I'm often asked about budgeting and spending of money, and I don't know if this is a good thing or a bad thing, Alderman Austin, but I don't get a vote. So the way it works in Chicago is the mayor appoints the budget director and the chief financial officer and the comptroller, and then the citizens elect the treasurer. So city council will vote to spend $100 on a new bridge. As I told you earlier, city council doesn't have any money, and the comptroller doesn't have any money. And then I transfer the money from my account to the comptroller, and then Steve Lux, the city comptroller, writes the big check for $100. So I'm actually not involved in budgeting at all.
Wow. Now, what about a budget that everyone's talking about this week? We've seen it on CNN, Fox News, MSNBC, CNBC. We're talking about $700 billion as far as a bailout. What is your read on that? First question.
These are difficult times, and the turmoil that we see in the markets is unprecedented. And what I tell people is just not to panic. If you're not in the stock market, it probably is not a good time to get in, but if you're in, you should stay in. I unfortunately opened up my statement last week and saw that I lost $40,000 in 1 month, and you know, that's a little scary, but it's important that we keep our financial markets stable. And so this so-called bailout that hasn't even been worked out yet is important to do just because there's a lot at stake.
There is a lot at stake, and people are, what they're talking about today in the financial world is oversight. Should we have it with oversight? Without oversight? We were on the brink of collapse, some say. How do you read that?
You know, I think this is all stemming back to the subprime lending market, and I'm always concerned that people think a subprime loan is a bad thing, when in reality, subprime lending allowed a lot of Americans to live the American dream of home ownership. So not all subprime loans was bad. Probably about 3 years ago, a lot of fraud entered the marketplace, and that really turned the market around, and now we're in the position we're in. So oversight into fraud is a good thing.
Well, that's where we are now.
He really does look like Phil Donahue, doesn't he?
Yeah, I've been in Jamaica for 2 years. It got real dark. Now, I'm going to open up the floor to questions because this is your meeting as well. Now, you have any questions for the treasurer while we're here? I'm walking around with a live microphone, and this is where you get a chance to ask anything you want. Now, you got to You got a question over here? We're going way over here.
Run,
Run. Here we go. Aldi?
Stephanie, it's a couple weeks after the first Tuesday in November, and one candidate has won the one guy has won it, and he contacts you to be Secretary of the Treasury. Would you accept that job at this time period?
I actually said to people the other day that if Mr. McCain calls me, I would accept, because I think the opportunity to serve our nation is once in a lifetime. So no matter what your political affiliation, I remember the West Wing where there was a Republican working for a Democratic president, and she said, this is about my country, this is not about me. So yes, if Mr. Obama calls, I'll run, and if Mr. McCain comes, we're packing up, guys, we're all going to D.C.
Stephanie, that might lead into the next question here. The city of Chicago, as many of these people here at this table who have recall about 60 or 80 years of city treasurers, have produced a number of memorable treasurers. If you get that call, how would you like your legacy to be remembered?
That's a very good question, Mr. Gregoni. Because I am overly competitive, I want to be known as the best city treasurer Chicago has ever had. And I want to be known as the treasurer that really did want to help adults enter the mainstream of the financial markets and teach children about financial literacy. I would be remiss if I didn't talk about my family a little bit, because small businesses is important to me also. I grew up, I'm a first-generation college graduate. My father and his 6 brothers came from very rural Mississippi. They were all born in the teens and the 20s to come up here to live the American dreams. And you can imagine what it was like for uneducated black men to come anywhere and try to establish a small business. But they had gas stations on the south side of Chicago, and I'm very proud of that fact that I am a product of a small business. And even though that's a thing of the past, these neighborhood gas stations, it's something I'm still very proud of, and I would like to make sure that I'm helping small businesses as well.
When do you think things will be better, and what is your definition of better?
Well, if I had the answer to that, we'd be having this meeting on my private island as opposed to at this wonderful restaurant of Maggiano's, and I really don't know the answer to that. I don't think any of us thought it would be as bad as it is. I mean, who would have thought we'd wake up and there's no Bear Stearns, and there's no Lehman Brothers, and Goldman Sachs is in trouble, and Morgan Stanley's in trouble, and it's just a really difficult time, so unfortunately I can't answer that question. I do think, though, we shouldn't panic and ride the storm.
Hi, Stephanie. I know
that's my sister, Beth.
We're twins. I know that you have been involved with a lot of philanthropic efforts prior to even becoming state treasurer. Can you let the folks in the room know about some programs that you've been involved with that can help mentor students, especially in finance and other
Sure, that wasn't a Freudian slip that Beth had. I'm referred to as the state treasurer quite often. He's a little taller than me, not a lot, he's a little taller than me, but being city treasurer, I'm focused on the city, and we have a stock market game in some of our Chicago public schools where children are actually competing with dollars to see who has the best returns. We had a financial fitness program that was a pilot program. And as I said before, I want to make sure that we're impacting 500,000 CPS students, making sure that they're all learning about money and how to manage money and how to say no to credit card debt, because I think we are living in a society of immediate gratification, and we don't know how to say no. And we want that pair of shoes when we want them. And trust me, no one likes nice shoes more than I do. But if you can't pay cash for it, then you can't have it. My father, as I explained to you, lived the American dream, and he died in 1986. Not owing anybody anything, not a mortgage, not a car loan. And so I was raised thinking, if you can't pay cash for it, then don't. Now, of course, I have some credit card debt because I am an elected official and I have no money anymore, but it's very manageable.
We talk about you. What is your average day like? What time do you start, and what time do you finish, and what do you do on weekends?
So, I'm asked to be the city treasurer by the mayor, and I go, wow, that is really cool, right? And so I think I am going to be the woman. All that entailed is I have a lot of bosses. So let's see, I see Alex Dubouclay's my boss, my cousin Kim's my boss. I just have a gazillion bosses. So I wake up at 5 o'clock in the morning just to take a deep breath. My young, energetic son is up shortly thereafter, and trust me, I define myself as Justin's mom. And so it really is all about him. And then My days vary. There are days that I go to pension fund meetings from 8 o'clock in the morning to 3 o'clock. I typically work 3 out of 4 weekends a month doing ceremonial things because, believe it or not, they want to see the treasurer sometimes, which is still kind of surprising to me. And for fun, I have all of Justin's extracurricular activities. My chief of staff is going to cringe, but yes, I have a horse and I ride whenever I can. And I try to play golf, which has happened about 4 times this year.
Okay, another question?
Hi, Stephanie.
My sister, Adrienne.
The one with red hair. Stephanie, you mentioned you sit on 5 pension boards. Can you name those boards and some general, some general details or generalities about them, size and who they serve? And are they facing any issues with this whole change in the market?
Well, I think that my colleagues here in the room could probably name them as well as I can, but we'll start with Chicago Municipal, which is the largest of the city funds. Currently, it's about $6 billion. It's about 65% funded. Then we have Chicago Laborers, which is about $2 billion, and it's 95% funded. And then we go to Chicago Police, which is about $3 billion, depending on how the market's doing, and it's about 50% funded. And then we have Chicago Fire, which is about $1.4 billion, and it's about 30%, or 40% funded, excuse me. They all face the same challenges. We are chasing excess returns. We are mitigating some of the risks in the market by doing diversification, so we're not heavily weighted in the stock market or the fixed income market. We're looking to turn to alternatives, private equity, hedge funds. We're trying to increase our returns. I look at the pension world as a 3-legged stool, as we most do. You can't throw money at the problem. We have to maximize returns to the best of our ability. We have to make sure that we are increasing contributions if we can, and we have to be careful what we're doing on the benefit side as well. If we get all 3 of those in sync, things will improve.
Last night on CNBC, there was a debate among the financial experts. They wanted to know, the question was, are we in a recession? And 4 out of the 5 could not agree. What is your opinion? Are we currently in a recession?
Well, it feels like one. I guess the technical definition of recession is 2 straight quarters of negative growth, and we haven't hit that, so technically we are not. But when gas prices are over $4 and the inflation of going to the grocery store, for the average American, it feels like a recession. Unemployment in Illinois is at one of the all-time highest levels. So it's a difficult time. So from my standpoint, it definitely feels like a recession.
Question? I had your question, didn't I? Wow. Well, one of the other things they talked about last night was when they said, when the Treasury Secretary said last week, we were on the brink of collapse. What did that mean to you? Were we about to, were the financial markets
I'm
about
learning.
to go
I'm not going
under?
to say what I really wanted to say. What did that mean to me?
Were we on the brink of a depression, a total collapse? What did that mean?
Well, the market did decrease 800 points in 2 days, and then as we all remember, it went up 800 points, and then it was down 350 points, and when I last checked, it was up close to 100 points. So it's a roller coaster ride. There's a lot of volatility in the marketplace. I think if the federal government hadn't stepped in and talked about some of the initiatives of a quote-unquote bailout, then no telling what would have happened. But the market definitely reacted strongly to what the federal government said it was going to do. In terms of yesterday's volatility, and my understanding is that was all driven on the price of oil, which increased, $30. It's just difficult times. That's why I say to people, just don't panic and just sit tight.
So not panicking, coming way over here, not panicking would be
going to your
don't go to the bank and pull all your money out.
and put it in your mattress. Let's not do that. Let's not withdraw all of our market from the stock market. Let's just sit tight and see what's going to happen.
Question about timing. When should there be a bailout done so that we can protect the marketplace? Should it be this quick? It seems like we should be taking our time to understand what the problem is before we throw a solution at it.
Well, the AIG bailout was big. We're talking about $1 trillion hit to the market, and so that needed to happen quickly. I think that in terms of the Bear Stearns bailout versus not bailing out Lehman, I don't know about the magnitude of that analysis, but the AIG and Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac, those are things that had to happen pretty quickly or we were going to have a ripple effect throughout the world.
Stephanie, all these questions are interesting, but aren't all of our problems going to be solved when the White Sox win the World Series?
That is what I am talking about. Now,
Joe Moore, I think that was aimed at your team.
I must admit that was a plant because that is my former alderman over there, so I did plant that question. So for those who don't know, yes, I tend to favor the White Sox, and my chief of staff favors the Cubs, so it's some balance in my office.
Hi. I'm going to ask one of the tough questions.
Okay.
I know I don't go out and buy a pair of shoes unless I have cash to pay for it. Why is the city in so much debt? Why is the state in so much debt? How can they keep spending, and we're in so much debt?
I actually don't know if our debt levels are any higher than they have been historically, so I'm not privy to that information. I do know that municipalities across the country are required to give a basic level of service, and this is where I get a little bit controversial, even though I'm not taking a side. Whether you are for or against the war in Iraq, it costs us money. We're spending about $10 billion a month over 5 years, and some of that money used to come to state, county, and local municipalities, and we're just not giving that money anymore. So how do we make ends meet? We have to somehow make ends meet just to provide basic services.
George Ryan, when he was governor of Illinois, wanted to give us some relief, and so he suspended a tax on gasoline, and for several months, we had a lower price at the pump. What do you think of that idea today? Because we have record prices at the pump.
So this is just my opinion, and as I said, I don't get a vote. So, but I don't think that's a good idea. The lady before just talked about how we're raising our debt limits because we don't have revenue sources, and so now that suggestion is to take away a revenue source from us. So we've got to get the money from somewhere.
Treasurer Neely, to bring this a little bit local to home, we have one of the highest tax rates in Chicago historically now, given the recent Cook County increase. And
sales tax.
Yes. And I'm a little concerned, as I'm sure many business people are here now, that there doesn't seem to be an end in sight. We recently heard that the county is now trying to borrow some additional money to close some budget gaps that they foresee. So I guess in one respect, your office is the one with the money, but as you just said, you're not the one that controls how it's spent. What should we as voters be doing to make sure that the issue of borrowing and spending and what's in the bank, so to speak, come into alignment?
Well, you've asked a question about the county that I can't speak to at all, but in terms of just borrowing in general, again, this is not new. Borrowing money for states and local governments is not a new practice. So again, I don't think it's at a high level. I think this is just normal borrowing that everybody's doing, so that doesn't bother me that we're issuing general obligation bonds or any kind of sales tax revenue bond, because that's something we've done historically. And you can always vote to change things.
So this is a hypothetical question. If you had been the Treasury Secretary in this current administration, what would you have done in the past to foresee the crisis that's occurred now?
Again, the crisis in the mortgage market kind of took us all by surprise. I don't think we realized, and maybe the Treasury Secretary did, but I, as a general person just reading the newspaper and following the financial markets, didn't realize it had gotten to the point it had gotten to. In Chicago, we were very concerned about foreclosures, and so my office, in conjunction with the mayor's office, went out and had borrower outreach days because we want to keep people in our homes. But we didn't realize how it impacted the financial market, so I don't know how to answer that because I wouldn't have been working with full information.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
I know that everyone in the room pretty much have a lot of financial questions for you, but I would like to digress back to some of the human nature things that you were speaking of. Is it your intentions to continue on with your predatory lending program?
Absolutely. It hasn't changed. The foreclosure rate is still high. It's important that we educate our most vulnerable citizens, our elderly, and our minority communities about some of the things that are going on. Now, on the good side, lending is difficult in general. There's no liquidity in the market, so we're not seeing a lot of the predatory lending as we had. But I don't believe we should be late to the game. We need to make sure we're educating people, read your documents. If it sounds too good to be true, it is, and just getting that word out.
How much of the financial world do you put into your living room or your eyesight every day? Do you start your day by reading the Wall Street Journal, then the Chicago Defender, then Channel 5, then Channel 7, MSNBC, CNBC, Fox News Financial. Where does it begin and where does it end?
Well, I can honestly say that I do start my day on Channel 5 and always have.
Thank you very much.
That is.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
And after that, I go to the Today Show and.
Thank you. Thank you.
When my son said to me, Ellie's moving to weekends, I knew that we were really watching Channel 5 a little too much. Luckily, I have a lot of people who give me information as well. So my staff will make sure that I have certain things to read if I haven't gotten to them, because my days are very different. You know, if I have a pension fund meeting at 8 o'clock in the morning, having a young son, I don't have time to get in there and delve in, so I get information through third-party sources. But I'm always up to date. They do a really good job of keeping me up to date after I watch Channel 5, of course.
Okay, thank you very much. Got a question over here.
Hi, I know the treasurer and under leadership have had a program where we put deposits with banks to support local banks and minority banks, given the conditions in the banking industry. Have you continued that, and have you made any changes in which you expect to continue that going forward?
It used to be called the Link Deposit Program. Thank you, Gene. I've known Gene since 1985. See, I told you, this is all a happy family. It used to be called the Link Deposit Program, and now we're calling it the Treasurer Small Business Loan Program. And we just made a deposit of $3 million last week to Illinois Service Federal, which is a community-based bank on the south side. The way that program works is they do all the credit analysis, so my office doesn't have anything to do with that. But a small business would go to them, say they're interested in the program, and then that bank is required to lend out 50% of whatever I've deposited. I think right now we're about $70 million in local banks, and we have increased the amount of money that small businesses can borrow from $150,000 to $250,000.
A question?
Hello. Can you talk a little bit about your Small Business Expo and how it's been going and how it's been growing?
So one of the surprising things about being treasurer is I'm mistaken for Carol Brown all of the time. All of the time. And, you know, I'm always like trying to put on a good face because people think I'm Carol and I'm trying to do her well. So that's Carol and I'm Stephanie. She's a little taller than I am. That's about it. But she's my sister nonetheless. The Small Business Expo is something we've done for about 7 years. We just had it this past August 2nd. It was at the UIC Forum. We had about 130 exhibitors and about 1,500, 2,000 people come through. It's a free workshop. We're probably going to have it again next year. We're still working out the dates. We had a business plan writing competition because small business owners need to know how to write a business plan. It was an opportunity to network and to go to free workshops and to talk to lenders. And it was a lot of fun. The mayor stopped by, Alexi stopped by, so we had the Jesse White tumblers. It's a good time for all.
Last year, you were in the studio at NBC talking about the expo, and you brought along 2 young ladies, and they invented something that has revolutionized the world. They have a pocketbook, a high-end, good-looking pocketbook, and the outside material is made of something that is solar collecting. You put your telephone inside this pocketbook, and it charges your cell phone,
or your iPod, or anything
and
else.
As a matter of fact, you introduced that to us.
I did.
And the next thing I know, it was on the Today Show worldwide. How are those young people doing?
They're doing really well. I mean, it's great. It's a green technology, obviously. You can just put your purse in the window and let it charge overnight, and then you actually have a generator in your purse that holds that charge, and you can charge everything. So they did a good job. They did get a lot of national attention, and they've kept in touch with us. And I'm proud to say that they started right here in Chicago and entered our small business writing competition.
Hi. You mentioned a lot of people losing their homes and whatnot, and it seems like the city has a plan to help people stay in their homes. What do you do working with lenders, and how do you negotiate for people to stay in their homes? Thanks.
As I said before, we offer these borrower outreach days where we actually bring lenders and homeowners together, and we have them sit down in a room and work it out. You know, if they can only afford $1,000 a month and their mortgage is at $2,000, they work it out. Clearly, banks don't want to own your home. They want to make sure you stay in your home. But we want to make sure people are calling their financial institutions, not waiting until they're 3 months late. It's a difficult phone call. Everybody's embarrassed. But we're just trying to get information out just to contact your lender, and they're willing to sit down with you. All right, I had promised everybody that we were going to do 20 minutes, so we'll take one more question.
Okay, I'll take it. I know the proposed $700 billion bailout is a federal issue, but I'm curious as to whether or not you have an opinion as to how important is it to tie executive compensation to that proposal.
I hadn't really thought about that. I heard about that yesterday. I think, if we're bailing them out, that makes sense. But at the same time, we have to incent people who do a good job. So I need to think that through a little bit more. I'm sort of on both sides until I see what the bigger plan is. We still haven't gotten the full understanding of what this bailout is. So I'm going to wait to see.
Give her a big round of applause. Wasn't she wonderful? Any question? Wow, nice job. Stephanie Neely, City Treasurer, City of Chicago. She loves to watch NBC 5 News.
Okay, so Kim, you can't have this. This is my hat that I'm going to give to Art, because I always see him in his Omega Sci-Fi hat, and so maybe he'll decide to wear this hat. And this is also for you, Jay. Thank you for having me.
Wow. Thank you. Stephanie Neely, City Treasurer. Look at that. Nice. Thank you. On behalf of the City Club of Chicago, we want to present you with the City Club of Chicago mug. Thank you for speaking. And also, a one-year membership to the City Club of Chicago. Let's give her a round of applause. That was fantastic. Thank you all. Meeting adjourned.